Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show. Hope everybody's having a good time around the world today, and appreciate you taking the time to tune us in. Today we've got two great wild women, Ms. Chris Austin and Ms. Toro Mulally, and we also have a great featured guest coming up on the show. But I'm very excited to have a good team with me, and actually, I call them the leaders of the.
We appreciate leading.
Behind every successful guy, there's always a more successful woman, and I have two here.
Who says I'm behind anyone? I'm in front of everyone.
Sarah's the alpha dog.
Yeah. Actually, you're both in front of me on the screen, so I guess that's the better way to say that. So welcome. Hi, Tara. Hi, Chris. How you guys doing today?
I'm good. I'm feeling apparently a little spicy this morning or this afternoon. I don't even know what time of day it is anymore. We just launched our bond. I know, it's a vitamin. I'm just full of energy. That's what I got. So I'm like, is it just morning? We're just starting? It's great. No, we launched our GO bond measure. So it's been a whirlwind of activity over at United, and I'm very excited about launching that and really finding a way to sort of fund some of these major projects that I've been talking about over the last few months in a way that doesn't impact people kind of as much as it could if we were to put things on rates. So obviously it still impacts people, and I'm still just doing an educational campaign, but it's been a lot of work, and I'm really excited to see it finally launch.
Well, I hear that Newsom announced $269 million to advance Sites Reservoirs project, but I don't know where he's getting that money, Chris.
Well, I know where. No, that's money coming from the Water Storage Investment Program, and Newsom didn't really do it. The Water Commission is running this program. They have a couple of projects that have dropped out because of infeasibility. So they're sitting on a large pot of money. So they're looking for ways to distribute it to the remaining projects. And Sites Reservoir asked for an inflationary increase, and it was granted. And so, it's just more the necessary funding that they need, and it's not necessarily unexpected. Oh, and it also is not in any way a sure thing. So it's more, they have potentially more money because, you see, the Water Storage Investment Program was created by Prop 1, put before the voters, and the terms of that bond are that the money goes to pay for the public benefit of these storage projects. And this is kind of coming from here in California, a lot of people feeling that taxpayers go and build these big dams and then pay for all of this infrastructure, and the farmers get the water at low or no cost, and they make a pile of money on it. So there are people that see it that way, and to be honest, in some areas the farmers don't pay much for water, and in other areas they pay more. It really varies from project to project, but that is sort of this feeling that has come about through the decades, and this idea of beneficiary pays on these projects. That's one you hear a lot. So for the water that's going to go to the farmers, that they have to cover that portion of the cost of the project, and then what goes for the public benefits, the state will pay for. And so they've had quite the robust public process and kind of figured out how they would attach values to this. And the public benefits are very specific: recreation, money, water that would be used for environmental flows, water that would be there for emergency response, like if there's a flood in the Delta, they can't get water, fresh water, then sites could have some water they could send to people or things like that. So all that's been set out. When the project was accepted, they kind of had all this idea of how much benefit the project was going to produce. Well, last month, this is all dependent on sites getting a water right, putting that water in the reservoir to generate all of these benefits for everybody. So they were looking for a 1.5 million acre foot water right to fill the reservoir, and the State Water Board came back and gave them somewhere around 987,000 acre feet, just under a million acre feet. So about 2/3 of the water that they were looking for. And if this is where the water right is going to land, that's just a draft water right. But if that's where it's going to land, then that's going to ripple down to everything, and it's going to mean less public benefit and less water for the people buying into it. So it really kind of will reshuffle the deck to see if this, all of this financial house of cards that's been set up is going to come to fruition. It is just the draft water right. The Sites Project Authority has objected to it, and a lot of folks have objected to it. And the environmental organizations, they object to it too. Nobody likes this. I think the environmental organizations say it's still too much, and the everybody else is not enough. So it's going to be a very interesting process. But it's an interesting headline, not exactly correct, I would have to say. Governor Newsom didn't give them, the California Water Commission gave them, and it all is contingent on how much public benefit that project's going to be able to produce when the time comes to award the final funds. We'll see.
It almost sounds like the Iranian and U.S. MOU.
Like who says what, where, when, why?
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of things that are not super popular, let's talk about data centers.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about me. Okay.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good. You're super popular. Everybody loves you.
No.
The oil
data center story today, isn't it? More. It's just so much. I have to say, I kind of thought it was an interesting take this morning when Grist comes out with the article, like, hey, why don't we put a data center down there in Kern County and, right around all those oil fields? And this is an idea that other people are kind of, in other locations are kind of thinking about. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. You got easy access to power. You don't have a lot of homes around. There are people living there to complain. And, as much as everyone hates data centers, we all need them. It's like, we're going to have to tolerate having them somewhere. So it actually makes a lot of sense to put them out there in the middle of Kern County, in the middle of all those pump jacks.
Well, even proposed, the ride out on the train to nowhere. They could put some up there. There was some article, some guy complaining that as a potential rider of the high-speed rail, he doesn't want to be driving through a valley full of data centers, and I'm kind of thinking you got a long
time before anyone's going to be riding that high-speed rail. I mean, it's like, I don't think
I'm riding it.
Maybe they
you
can sell
will probably have long left the planet by the time it actually runs.
You know, that's another way the state can make money on the trains, or the train can make money. You buy those things you wear at night when you go to sleep, the blue blinders that go around your eyes, and you can pass those out to people and charge a couple bucks to get them, and they don't have to look out the window. Easy situation, but it's getting crazy. But you know, it's true. Look, anything that's proposed never gets 100%, right? And there's always going to be a negative side to no matter who proposes whatever. Always. It's just
a lot of these places that are already dealing with water scarcity concerns, like Arizona or like Kern County out in Ridgecrest, where they want to put one in. I mean, it's kind of understandable why people would be concerned there. And there's the stories of sort of misuse. I don't know how to put it. I know that they're back in the East Coast, I think it might have been Georgia or North Carolina, sort of this predominantly rural and kind of low income area. Elon Musk put in a big data center, and then to power it, he brought in like 20 or 25 diesel semi-truck power generators, and they run these things, and they're loud and they're smelly. And while people are, there's like a farm field in between them and the data center, they're still hearing these things, they're still smelling these things, and, they can't get any help from authorities to do anything about it. And I think, it's stories like that that make people cringe. Are you going to bring in, 20 semi-trucks of diesel generators and, smell up our neighborhood?
Well, something that's kind of cool about this, I feel like, is the idea that you could even use the produced water from the oil field to cool the data centers. So that would be, and with some of the technology that we've learned about right here on our show, they could run it through the little, pulling out all the selenium and the good little minerals and stuff, make money off of that, then make money off the data center. I just feel like oil companies are, as per usual, going to be able to profit pretty extensively on this opportunity. And I think you're right. I think this is likely not a NIMBYism moment, because the oil may be able to sustain the data center, which would be able to then sustain the oil. I don't see a downside yet. I'm sure there's one somewhere that somebody's going to tell me, but at this moment in time, it's all roses.
Yeah. Well,
it's hard to find the downside there.
I found outside the Phoenix area, the suburbs, where they're building all new home tracks. And people went in and bought all the property with the developers, and now they're building these gigantic, and I mean gigantic, data centers, huge, unbelievable. And so what would you do? It's like buying a home, and there's some empty lots across the street from you or behind you, and next thing you know, they put in a gigantic shopping mall. Yeah. And now you got all the traffic and stuff, and I just think there's better places. I mean, I'm not the expert at any of this, but somebody's got to go out and do the front end work to decide where would be a good place that we're not going to have problems. People aren't going to complain.
It's called a city planner. They have a whole job around that, and sometimes they're really amazing, and sometimes they're not as good. And I'm not going to say who's who because I have no idea. But that's specifically what they're supposed to do, is decide where that stuff is supposed to go. Now, one thing that I've found, especially because I did development work for a long time, is one thing I have to say is you're not guaranteed the view you currently have today. There's nothing legally required to maintain your view. So when you buy your property, you are not buying the view that goes with your property. You are buying the physical land that you have. So the idea that you're going to just not have anything built next to you because you decided to build early is just, I feel like there's this misconception that you have this right to the thing that's next to you that nobody owns, except for somebody probably owns it. And at some point, they're probably going to want to sell it for a profit, at which point something's going to go in. whether it's an apartment complex, a mall, a gas station, a data center,
We learned that the hard way. And so my advice, and I tell this to people every chance I get, if you buy a piece of property, before you buy it, take a look around at every piece of undeveloped land and go down and find out what's going to go in there, because a lot of times none of this is a surprise. What I dealt with in Santa Clarita was on the planning books like 30 years ago. Like, I went to the planning office to object, and they're like, "Well, your parents should have come in." It's like it's that way. So, lesson learned. Take a look. You gotta take care of yourself when you are making big dollar purchases like that.
Well, especially there's mineral rights, there's water rights onto your property, and sometimes the government owns that. And they can come in. And they can come in and start.
They can sever the oil and gas rights from the land in Colorado. Yes. So people own these big sprawling properties, and all of a sudden, knock on the door. We're going to put in a little well over there. Oh, we got the right. Here we go. And there goes your little bucolic ranch in the on the plateau. So again, read your documents. That was all disclosed, certainly.
Hey, you ladies remember a movie with Aaron Brockovich?
We don't talk about that. Why are we talking about that?
No, we got to talk about Potter Valley. Because
we can do that.
Finally, I understand why they want to buy this thing. This is amazing. Okay, now Potter Valley is this little project up above Russian River, folks, a little dam and a diversion, and it's scheduled to be, or they're working on decommissioning it and taking it out of, it's going to take out the dam, and there's lots of people for this project, lots of people against this project, and so enter in the Southern California Water Agencies, and this little outlet, the Lost Coast Outpost, put up kind of did a perusal through these documents. So their idea is they're going to buy this project, fix up the dam, refurbish it, and then they're going to sell the water to the people downstream and use that money to buy water for their constituents. And are you ready for the price? I was looking at Tara's face. $8,000 an acre foot.
No.
I mean, that's like the tunnel. Like, that's like 10 tunnels of water.
Such a deal.
Oh my God! I feel like there needs to be some sort of like a soap opera surrounding this, like Days of Our Potter Valley. Like, it's just every time they turn something, I'm just like, wait, what? What?
So they got the Trump administration is involved, and Brooke Rollins is in the mix, and they had a meeting in Washington, and they shut out the native tribe that has water rights on that river, like in decreed water rights, not theoretical. We haven't figured out, but like quantified water rights, and they're shut out of the negotiations in Washington. So we'll see what's happening. There's going to be some FERC scoping meetings next week in Ukiah. I bet that they will be pretty spicy.
It makes me wonder who's up for re-election this year and whether or not their constituents are super happy with what's happening there. Because if I tell you right now, if I were a constituent going like, wait, you're going to do what now with we're gambling with my money now? What is happening?
Well, at least they tell you.
How does this survive a Prop 218?
I know. I feel bad for that comp team.
Well, they figure it's better to tell you gambling versus they're going to just take your money.
That's true. That's true.
Because
That
you may
happens
have
all
a
the
chance.
time.
You may have a chance.
You could win big. You could win $8,000 an acre foot big. I just don't see anyone doing that. But you never know.
I don't see how Russian River grape farmers are going to be able to afford $8,000 an acre foot. It sure ain't paying that now.
My feeling is they're going to quickly become Stockton grape farmers.
Well, unless they go into the high-end wine business and sell it for $200 a bottle, that's about the only way they're going to make the money back on that.
Not with that soil. No. Not with that soil, they're not. There's some good Russian River soil, but it's not. That's no Napa for sure.
No. So, Chris, what's happening with this delta and the salinity issues?
Oh, that. Well, I think you're referring to that's kind of I will say a technical report on delta, but bunch of workshops. No, much more interesting.
Delta science.
If you flip down a few scrolls, then you get into Edward Ring's commentary on just how much flow does the delta need? Isn't this the $60 bazillion question? They've been. This is something they've been asking the science community for, and the science community never can really answer this question because they want to know, like how much in acre feet does it really need? And scientists are not really willing to put numbers on it like that. But anyways, it's a very interesting commentary that kind of says, well, if you could just determine how much water that the delta needs, then we could just take everything up above it.
Yeah. Well, reading, as we all know, it's going to be on our show in a couple of weeks, but I am amazed and enlightened every time I read something that he writes, and the detail and specificity that he does. He just doesn't throw out a bunch of words. He backs it up. And he's a pretty interesting guy.
Well, yes, and I agree. But you shouldn't. There's always some room there's always wiggle room here. I mean, he has an opinion and he has facts to back up that opinion. But there are other ways to look at this, and other people do look at this. Like the environmentalists, I think, would feel that really our system, our ecosystem here is used to things like drastic fires or really big floods, and for an ecosystem, that kind of what the word I think they use is perturbance on the landscape is actually good. So when good on an occasional basis. It's kind of how nature sort of, flushes things out. So, the idea that you're going to decide how much water is going to go through the delta and take everything up above that is going to reduce the times that the ecosystem experiences those perturbances. And that is a bit of an impact. And so, there are just different ways. That's the thing about California water is that it's so multifaceted and so many different ways to feel about things. It's, I think if you all sat down, very few people would believe exactly the same thing about every little piece of it. It's just, different ways. Right. But I appreciate him the way he shows his work. This is, really great.
I'd add, instead of the wiggle room that you had mentioned, since we're talking water, I think it's ripple. To go with that. Anyway, Chris, thanks a lot for updating us on all of that. And thanks for the fun session. You ladies were hysterical. Maybe laugh. And so anyway, as I always mentioned, if you want to get the best in California water news, go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber, get it on every single morning on your laptop, your PC. It's a great way of knowing what's going on, even behind the scenes and before everybody else knows about it. You can also become a sponsor of that if you want to contribute a little to that. It's all tax deductible, and it's a great read, and you learn a whole lot of stuff, I got to admit. So thank you, Chris, for joining us this week. We'll talk to you next week. You have a good, nice weekend. Hope it's going to be cool where you are. I know you're in Reno today. I don't know if it's hotter than where you live, but enjoy it.
Will do. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. All right, we're going to take a little break and be back with our featured guest. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, something I really like. I like techie stuff. So I'm just a nerd, what can I say? So stick around. We'll be right back.
KCAA.
Take control of your business anywhere, anytime with the SiteOne mobile app. Designed for contractors on the go, the app keeps you connected to your account wherever the job takes you. When you're signed in, you get full visibility into your personal account without needing a computer. Check your contractor-specific pricing, see real-time inventory, create custom lists, and reorder from your product history or saved lists in just a few taps. Scanning QR codes makes managing products even easier. You can quickly add items to a list, view product details, or add them to your cart in an instant. Need to approve a quote or pay a bill? You can do it right from your phone. Track your orders, view invoices, even redeem your partner's program points for rewards that give back to your business. Plan smarter with built-in project calculators that save time and help you quote with confidence. Logging in is quick and secure. Use Face ID or Touch ID for instant access. Customize your experience by choosing your preferred language in English or Spanish. Looking to level up your knowledge? Browse, learn, and explore videos and articles, or find local events to stay connected with your SiteOne community. The SiteOne mobile app puts the power of your business in your pocket.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone Show. Hope everybody's enjoying the day. We have a special guest on that I'm real interested in, and his name is Jeff Bruder, and he's the co-founder and CEO of Sonic Fire Tech, which is a company developing infrasound systems to prevent fires before ignition, using no water, chemicals, or operational delays. And prior to co-founding Sonic Fire Tech, Bruder was an aerospace engineer with the NASA Glenn Research Center, working on systems for a Venus lander and convert heat energy into acoustic waves, which are then turned into usable power. So I'd like to welcome this distinguished gentleman, Mr. Jeff Bruder. Welcome to the Water Zone.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. My background is electronics and physics, and I am into audio and everything else. So when I read about this product that you have, it just blew me away, and I said I have to talk to this guy. So, so what first inspired you to explore the idea of using sound and acoustics as a tool for fire suppression?
Yeah, so my background is largely in acoustics. It was actually my co-founder Michael Thomas who had the idea to do this. He had seen DARPA. DARPA did this back in 2008 at small scale, and a couple others had done it. So he was looking into it and kind of found me through some of my patents. Reached out and said, "Hey, do you think we could do this better?" So yeah, I'd give him the credit for getting us moving on this for sure.
Wow, amazing. So I the same thing with acoustics. My first job was at Altec Lansing, and then I became director of engineering for them for 20 years. Anyway, but how does Sonic Fire's your sound system call that differ from earlier acoustic fire suppression attempts, and why is it more effective?
Yeah, well, so just to start this, in order for fire to exist, you need three things, right? You need heat, fuel, and oxygen. Water is sapping the heat from the chemical reaction. We vibrate the oxygen faster than the fuel can use it, so it breaks the chemical reaction. And the primary difference is in a typical sprinkler system, typical chemical foam, any fire suppression system you have, when they go off, they destroy everything around them. So you delay the start to make sure that there's a fire before they go off. You try to avoid false alarms. Whereas our system doesn't have any side effects. So we can use the most sensitive detectors around and trigger within milliseconds of a fire. So we're much faster, we keep the fire contained, and we don't do any collateral damage.
So how does this differ from hypoxic fire suppression? I know that I've just talked to, it's hilariously, just last week I was talking to our IT team, and they were like, he's like, I actually removed the hypoxic thing. It like freaked me out. There were people who couldn't breathe, and like, so
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the difference between that and what you do.
Yeah. So those systems, you're storing some sort of inert gas, CO2 or nitrogen or something like that, and you're flooding the room with it so that you drop the oxygen levels below what can sustain flame. The problem is people can't sustain there either. So those also, there's typically an alarm that goes off, and it gives several minutes for people to clear the area before it goes off. Ours, we're using sound. We're moving oxygen, but we aren't displacing it. So you can stand in front of the system and breathe just fine. So there is not that risk with our system.
I'll have to tell Zach. He'll be so relieved.
Yeah, that is something that concerns people for sure.
What's the exact frequency range of Sonic's infrasound, and how does that compare to everybody else that's trying to do it?
Yeah, so anybody who had tried this before was basically using subwoofers to generate the acoustic waves, and those optimize between 30 and 60 hertz, which is audible, right? Right. Below 20 is called infrasound. Most people, their hearing threshold is 25 or so. So we operate typically between 10 and 20 hertz, which it becomes very difficult to efficiently generate acoustic waves, especially at high pressure down at those frequencies. And that's where my NASA background and working on thermoacoustic systems came into play. I've been working on high efficiency, high intensity acoustic systems for 15 years.
That's crazy. That's so cool. So what are kind of some of the technologies that you use in this specifically? Like like there's the piston generation. Like if you're not using subwoofers, then kind of what are you using, and how does that generate the sound differently or better?
Yeah. So we had to design the system from scratch. we initially, so the first demonstrations to see if we could do any better, we did buy some parts from Home Depot and AutoZone and slap something together. And I think prior to us, the furthest distance anybody had achieved was about 18 inches of suppression distance. And with our first test, we knocked the fire out from 7 feet with some pretty crude things. But now, in order to get the efficiency and power levels we need, everything had to be designed from scratch. We have a specific motor that we use that looks nothing like a subwoofer. All of the subwoofer components would shatter with the pressures that we're with what we're generating. But I think generating the acoustic waves is one thing that was an advancement, but sort of a small step from what other folks were doing. What I think the bigger innovation is that we figured out how to distribute it. So we can use one acoustic generator, and then we use ducting, and we can distribute acoustic energy around a building like a sprinkler system. We can have multiple zones, and we can cover a 2,000 to 5,000 square foot building with a single unit.
Wow.
That's amazing. There was a company, I don't know, I'm sure you heard of it. It's called Belkin Electric.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they developed a piston-driven speaker system. Well, actually, it was one speaker. It was like a 8-inch speaker, and they were selling it for like $2,800 a piece. And that was pretty interesting. I got to see that and hear it. It was very, very interesting. It was put together in their Germany plant. Pretty unique things like that. How does your system handle any false alarms or any non-fire heat sources?
Yeah. So in our detection, we've got, and this is where the NASA background comes in. So a few of our engineers are ex-NASA. So we took that.
So you took everyone from NASA is what I just heard. You just everyone from NASA.
We plucked a few people, for sure.
And it's going to land on Venus. Oh, we're kidding.
I would say that the motors could probably survive launch at least. Sorry, what was the question one more time? I want to make sure I give you the right answer.
I'm laughing. I can't remember the question I asked.
Okay, so
I lost track.
Yeah, no, it's all good. This is where your NASA background comes in.
How does it handle false alarms or non-fire heat sources?
False alarms. Yes, sorry about that. Okay, so in our detectors, we actually have three different sensing mechanisms. So we have an IR3 detector that is already FM rated as a primary, and then we have a secondary system that's using machine learning. It's using thermal and RGB cameras that basically gives the go no go, so we can actually sense good fire versus bad fire. So particularly in a kitchen scenario, when you have a cooktop that should light regularly, our system knows that's okay, but when there's excessive smoke or flame, it knows that that's not supposed to be there. And in particular with a grease fire, so a third of home fires are started in the kitchen. And so water is a terrible thing to have go off in the kitchen. So that's one of the primary selling points, I think, for our home system is being able to protect grease fires. But grease fires, you typically cook around 200 Celsius, flashovers at 407 Celsius. So we have our system dialed in that when the smoke is rolling off at about 370 C, our system triggers so that we actually avoid the fire versus allowing it to get flashover.
In a wildfire situation, how does your solution address any of the specific risks, like ember intrusion and such?
Yeah, so that's really the second generation of what we're doing is to protect the exterior of the home from embers. This first generation that we're rolling out for interior protection can also protect attics where you have ember intrusion into attic vents. But it is a different thing to run the system in 60-mile-an-hour winds and all the things that come along with a full ember storm with a wildfire. So we're working to prove that it can do that as well. We've done it in 10 to 20 mile an hour and shown that we can effectively blanket a building with acoustic energy and keep the embers away. But we need to work towards the higher velocities.
One thing I forgot to ask you, you were saying you use the IR technology. Did you ever think of using a laser?
Using a what?
A laser versus the IR infrared?
So we had not actually, no. The IR sensors that we're using had been used for fire detection in industrial and wildfire settings already. So we were trying to use something that was I don't want to call off the shelf, but close to it. And no, I had not seen a laser technology that would do what we were after.
Okay, right. Just interested in that. I thought that was something that might.
That's the physics part. That's where the physics comes in. So we had the NASA come in. Now we have the physics come in. You love your lasers.
But that's why. Well, yeah. I mean, I tempered with those a long time ago, turning sound into laser stuff. Anyway, that's a long time ago. We don't have to go to that. I'm not here to interview me.
Just kind of getting back into, like, we've now talked about wildfires, we've talked about house fires. Like, who is your target market? Like, what do they do? Who are they? Tell me a little bit more about, is it commercial? Is it housing? Is it wildfires? That's a lot of different kinds of fire.
Oh, yeah. So, well, our initial market is interior residential systems. So California has mandated that any home built after, I believe it's 2012, needs a sprinkler system installed inside. There's 500 jurisdictions through the United States that have that same mandate. So that is where we're starting, and with a focus on LA County, where rebuilds are happening after the Palisades fires. So one thing that I don't know that everybody's aware of is a lot of the homes that burned down last year were built before the sprinkler mandate. So now when these folks are rebuilding, they not only have to install the sprinkler system, they have to upgrade the water service that runs to their structure, and that's costing between $25,000 and $40,000 a piece, on top of buying a sprinkler system, and taxing an already overworked water infrastructure.
So, various risks that I would believe. What are the main technical safety and scalability risk of the infrasound fire suppression?
So what we are trying to do, actually what we have done is there are fire codes that need to be met to show that it is the appropriate thing for this use case. NFPA 13D is the code that covers this. So we brought in a fire protection engineer from NFPA to write a test plan and run the system in accordance with it to prove equivalency. So we've gone through that. So we've been working with fire service all along to make sure they were comfortable and that we were doing things the right way to be equivalent to a water system.
That's super cool. So tell me more about how, like, if I were a homeowner, how I would even sort of access what you guys are doing or learn about it or make sure that it works for me. For example, I just bought a new house. What am I doing?
Yeah, so the focus right now is on new build. It is easier and less expensive for any type of fire suppression system, and we are at price parity with sprinkler systems. So there isn't a price difference. Where I mean, you can reach out to our website, sonicfiretech.com, and there's a link to get in touch with us if you're interested in a system. As I said, the focus is LA County, but we are going all through California. And there's a few other states that we're engaged with fire service in. And couple of the key points are the water sprinkler systems in people's homes. They are effective, and the water damage is one thing that people are concerned about, and leaks and mold in ceilings. So insurance is a little leery of them, I believe. But about 20% of the time that a sprinkler system is needed, it doesn't function, and that's usually because people have turned it off because they don't want the leaks in their ceiling. So I think that's a primary selling point for us. We can cover kitchens, which are a third of fires, and water systems cannot do that. And your water systems typically they're a latent detection. It takes 3 to 4 minutes after a fire starts for them to be triggered. So your ceiling has to get to 180 degrees before they turn on. In our testing, rather than 3 to 4 minutes, our average response time was 3 seconds. So we get to that fire and contain it, put it out well before it becomes an issue.
Pretty quick. How does your product mitigate the potential for any unintended vibrational effects? Is that
unintended vibrational effects?
Yeah. Any
So what do you mean by that?
Well, you have people in the rooms. You have other things. Does it cause any vibrational effects when it's applied, when it's turned on?
There's air motion. Yeah. So there's air motion. I don't know that there would be anything that would affect, certainly not people, but I don't, electronics or anything like that, I don't think would be affected by it. We're since the frequency is so low, our wavelength is on the order of 54 feet. So we're displacing air, quite a bit back and forth, but It's outside of typical operation of anything that would be in your house. But we're also at fairly low pressures, and so it's there's been some NIH studies at significantly higher decibel ratings than we're at that have showed it's benign. So I don't think there's any effects to be concerned about.
No effects to humans or anything like that.
No. There was a study, and I don't know who signed up for this, but they were running 120 decibels of infrasound 8 hours a night for a month while people were sleeping to see if there was any lingering side effect. And that was, and there wasn't in that study. And we are significantly below that. We are typically 85 to 90 decibel. But again, it's below audible, so you don't hear it. You do feel some vibration, but it's not nothing too intense.
So the old people didn't get up and rock and roll at night when you turned this on.
Maybe it gently rocks them back to sleep.
Yeah. No, when I saw an article about your product, I told Tara, I said, I got to find out more about this stuff. And I went online and did that, and then I called your place and talked to one of your staff. And this stuff intrigues me. That's what I started off working on when I graduated school, and I love the technology. I like I like people who are creative, and I always say to my engineers, you can't walk on water if you don't get out of the boat. And a lot of engineers don't, they just, I don't know. I don't see they had a deep passion sometimes because they say, well, it's not going to work. Well, I don't want to know why it doesn't work. I want to know why it does work. And if you built a product that's going to fail, show me the failure analysis that would have. Show me a tree of what could fail, and then what would you do to correct that and put it back into the manufacturing process. anybody can design something, but it doesn't mean it's going to be for, you got to design for manufacturability. You got to do it for reliability and quality. And those are the three stools I look at when somebody comes to me with a plan and we're working on a product and such as that. That's important to make sure that, it's one thing to make something that works real quick and real fast for a short period of time, but you need to make something that's going to last. And, with the technology that you're doing, people, and I'm not saying they're going to expect it. They don't expect it in any company that's doing any high-tech, products and stuff. And yours is, to me, it's really simply amazing. And I appreciate I had the opportunity of talking to you and sharing this with our listeners, because I think it's something interesting. How can people find out more about your product?
Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with us is just go to the website at sonicfiretech.com.
Okay. And you have multiple offices around that you have, or is this one location?
So we're based in Cleveland, Ohio. There will be an office shortly in California.
Wow. Is that your main?
So we can hang out. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
California's the place.
Yeah, we do have some staff there, and there's a trailer with a tiny home and our system set up on it that has been on the road, showing up at fire service locations all over California.
And because I know we're running out of time, because Rob's about to tell me we're running out of time, I have one more little question. I know we only have 4 more minutes. It's crazy. Time flies when we're gabbing. How about the commercial side of things? And is there the possibility that you guys are going to start developing into more of a retrofit situation, since that's highly needed, especially in a lot of these homes and businesses?
Absolutely. Yeah, so retrofit is perfectly possible. It's not any more complicated than retrofitting to put a water sprinkler in. There's 250,000 homes built in the U.S. a year that are mandated to have internal sprinklers that are new builds. So for us starting out, it's just an easier market to look at. But in the commercial side, so that is all being pursued. Primary path is this interior residential. There are a few uses for the same equipment because it can be run through ducting and cover a large area. We're talking to some manufacturing facilities, data centers. We actually have a development or a demonstration contract with PG&E as well to do a larger scale system. So yeah, there's lots of other use cases that we're talking to folks about.
And are you going to do any small scale, kind of room by room stuff? So the reason why I ask this question is because I imagine IT server rooms, whereas water, they might be willing to risk damaging with sprinkler systems, kind of office space, where you're really only risking 1 or 2 computers. It's not, the scale of that is not as intense as a server room, which is specifically dedicated to the heartbeat of the organization. Are you doing anything like that at all?
We do. We have a half scale version that right now we're actually putting into backpacks. If you look around on our YouTube, you'll see a backpack version of the system.
I just imagine it's like boombox style.
Yeah, it looks a lot like a proton pack.
I'll just call you Bankman. It'll be great.
Yeah, Tara, did I ask him if it comes in different colors?
Is there a pink version or a purple version or a blue version? That's what I'm asking right now. Can I get a color coordinated with my clothes?
So nicely, sure. Since you asked so nicely.
All kidding aside, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk about this. Because again, I think this is a fantastic idea and product, and I can see it exploding in the next few years with all the data centers.
Thank you both so much for having me. Yeah.
All right.
I thank you so much for having me on here.
If you have any other things coming up in the future where you're doing some testing with some specialties, we'd love to have you back and give us a follow-up on that.
Absolutely.
Just give us a call, and you got my email. Give me a call or send me an email, and we'll be glad to have you come back on and talk about that. I think it's really, really interesting. And I'd like to see the government take on some of these things that you have and put them in the buildings and see what happens. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Have a good
All right,
week.
thank you. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.
And Tara, it's that time again.
Remember, folks, if you like green,
Gotta have blue. So have a good evening, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.